So, first of all, thank you to the Brenner Mishpacha for hosting again.
Pleasure. Thank you for everyone coming in, and thank you, Rabbi, for making time for us.
And making the trek all the way over.
I know, it's so far.
Hi. Okay, so this is an exciting endeavor. We're going to be learning together in Avodas Hashem some of the teachings of Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Morgenstern, Shlita, known as Rabbi Itche Meir Morgenstern. He is a well-known Kabbalist in Eretz Yisrael, very, very impactful in his synthesis of Kabbalah and Machshava, taking very lofty ideas, but being able to translate it into a more user-friendly vehicle for us to be able to benefit from. Rabbi Itche Meir himself, he was born and raised in London. He went from a ger background, so born in a Chassidic mishpacha, and he was in Gateshead. That's where he learned. And then he moved to Eretz Yisrael, and now he has his own yeshiva. So what we're going to be looking at together is something that was authored by one of his Talmidim, and it's exciting. We'll jump right in. Okay, so there are a few volumes, and this volume in particular, I think, is the most fundamental, where he explains some of the essential ideas of Avodas Hashem. And what we're looking at now is the introduction, where he teaches us Hatanug ba'avoda, the importance of having pleasure in one's Avodas Hashem. And the way it's structured, right on top, you have the text, and then at the bottom you have more of the footnotes. We'll be focusing on top, and we'll reference a footnote here and there.
Whose footnotes?
The same author, just more concise on top and more elaborate on the bottom. Okay, let's jump in. Lisanig ba'avoda. Here's the concept of trying to derive pleasure from one's Avodas Hashem. HaTorah HaKadosha. Marbe ledaber. Al-Inyan HaTamnug ba'avodas Hashem Yisbarach. The Torah speaks about the concept of experiencing pleasure within our Avodas Hashem. And now he quotes a pasuk from Tehillim, where David HaMelech writes, Tamu uru'u ki tov Hashem. Literally that means, you should taste and you should see ki tov Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. Meaning that it's much more than an intellectual pursuit, but everything we're trying to accomplish is very visceral, it's emotional, there should be a flavor to our Avodas Hashem. Tamu uru'u ki tov Hashem. Another pasuk we have is Oz tis'aneg al Hashem, the idea of rejoicing with Hashem. We also have, he quotes psukim that refer to achila, the consumption. Who would have their phone on in the middle of the shir?
I'm looking for mine, but mine's there.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The idea of achila and shtiya, right? Having almost like an experience of consumption, of eating and drinking in regards to ruchnius. Where do we find that in Chumash? That a really uplifting spiritual experience was actually referred to as achila. So by there, the Malachim, they were actually eating something, or at least they were pretending to eat.
Mizbeach eats.
The Mizbeach eats, okay, but I'm looking for a human experience where it was so uplifting and it was so, just this infusion of Kedusha that it's only described as achila and shtiya. So we have...
In the man?
But again, that was a real
actually
achila,
eating.
right?
Yeah.
So we have at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, where... Do we have a Chumash available? If not, it's...
I mean, if somebody doesn't mind, so I don't
I'll grab it.
Definitely.
Just to reference it inside. So at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, where it speaks about the actual experience of Maimon Har Sinai, it has the following description. Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael. They saw, they referring to, right? It says that the Zakenim, the elders, went up, and Nadav and Avihu. They started to ascend the mountain with Moshe and Aaron. Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael, and they had this incredible vision of Hashem. V'tachas raglav kamase livnas hasapir, where there is this vision of Hashem, and underneath HaKadosh Baruch Hu was a livnas hasapir, a sapphire brick. Uke'etzim hashamayim l'tohar, and it was as beautiful as the very essence of heaven itself in its purity. Ve'el etzile b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado, and to the Atzile B'nai Yisrael, to the leaders of Klal Yisrael, referring to the elders and Nadav and Avihu, Hashem did not send his hand. Right? The connotation here, as Rashi points out, is maybe there was something that they were doing that was inappropriate, and it was worthy of Shalach Yado, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu refrained from doing anything. V'yechzu es Elokim, and they gazed at Hashem, v'yochlu v'yishtu, and they ate and they drank. So the way Rashi understands this pasuk is what they were doing that was inappropriate, where there's this connotation that they were worthy of punishment, is v'yochlu v'yishtu, that they were in this incredible moment, but it was almost as if, we're watching it as a movie. Pass the popcorn, right? Look at that. Livnas asapir. There was a sense of like observing it and almost viewing it as entertainment, more than actually being present in just the overwhelming kedusha. That's how Rashi understands the pasuk. Onkelos, though, has a different interpretation. Onkelos, when he gives the Aramaic translation, he says, V'chozu yos yakara d'Hashem, they were gazing at the glory of Hashem, v'hovu chodon b'karbenehon de'iskablu ke'ilu ochlin v'shosin, and they were rejoicing in the fact that Hashem was accepting their carbon, ke'ilu ochlin v'shosin, their rejoicing was as if they were eating and drinking. It was so real, it was so palpable, that the description of that ruchnius was achila and shtia.
So why would that have been deserving of a stira?
Oh, so according to Onkelos, it sounds like they weren't doing anything inappropriate here. Now he would have to explain what does that mean, lo shalach yodo. But this is one classic example where we find achila and shtia as potentially referring to the experience of ruchnius. We do find another place also, and this is not explicit in Chumash, but it's very intriguing. Moshe Rabbeinu ascends the mountain, and he's there for 40 days. And it says in the pasuk, he didn't eat or drink. So if you had to imagine, what was that experience like? Right, you're going without food, so obviously that means you're somehow transitioning into a different dimension of existence where you don't need food. But until I saw the comment of the Orach Chaim on that pasuk, I never thought about it too carefully, but I would have assumed that it was just like this angelic, different realm of being makabel Torah, where obviously there's no need for food or drink because you're in the Himmel. Says the Orach Chaim that the Rebbeinu Bechaya, right, one of the great Rishonim, the Rebbeinu Bechaya says, during those 40 days, Moshe didn't need anything to eat or drink because he was consuming the ultimate kedusha, the tanug, the pleasure of achila and shtia through his communication and interaction with the Borei Olam. right? And it gives it a whole different paradigm. It's a different picture of what that experience was. Obviously, he was transcending physicality, but there was even more of an achila and shtia, just in a whole different realm. So his point here is, we find that the Torah in many places seems to give us this ideal of having a real sense of tanug in our avoda. V'onu mevakshim al kach b'chol yom. So, and we actually daven for this every single day. We daven every day that Hashem, not only should you help us be makayim your Torah, but you should make it geshmak. Make it geshmak. Make it enjoyable. And that's what we say in the bracha and Berchas HaTorah v'harevna. V'harevna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei Torasecha b'finu. And the way he's understanding that bracha is not only within the learning of Torah, are we asking that you should make it enjoyable, but v'harevna is saying in all of our Avodas Hashem, make it geshmak. Okay? Now, I'm curious, is this idea, does it resonate? Does it make sense? Does it seem kind of strange?
The Rav talked about it a few weeks ago with the Parsha, right? So it's just going...
Probably. It's a strange thing that there's somebody for the last year or so who's been writing over the drushas. And it's very impressive because he mamish remembers every step, and sometimes when I read it over, I'm like, oh wow, that's much better than the way I said it. But I'm realizing more that I'm not remembering the drushas as well as I did before, because I almost feel like psychologically, okay, Baruch Hashem, they're saved. It's a weird dynamic. But it seems beautiful and it resonates well. One could ask the question, doesn't this seem somewhat like a selfish pursuit? No one's going to ask that question. No. Okay. Weiter. Why not? Meaning we did learn when we had our Pirkei Avos learning together, right? The very beginning of the first parak, we had that Mishnah that we shouldn't do Avodas Hashem al menas lekabel pras. We shouldn't do it in order to receive reward.
Not necessarily because we want to do it.
Which I think sometimes we have this feeling that in order to do something that's really impressive, that's really holy, it's got to be very uncomfortable.
We hear of Gedolim, let's say, who they don't really eat much. So it's not that they're depriving themselves because so they're doing Torah. It's more of that they are
getting
eating
nourishment.
and they are
Other kind of
already
nourishment.
That's a very nice insight. When you read the biography of Reb Steinman, what did he have throughout the day? One bowl of oatmeal without any sugar. So you get the sense of your mamish living a life of tsar and precious. But the idea is, no, if you're really connecting to Ruchnius, you're getting a lot of pleasure, more so than most of us mortal men and women can even imagine.
That's why they live long, right? Like the Gedolim and...
I wonder if there's a connection there. It could very well be.
They're
Also, just only eating oatmeal is probably a good reason. There are potentially two ways of looking at why do we want that pleasure. So there could be a practical reason for it. The more I enjoy doing it, so the more I'll do it. Right? Just like eating, understanding that if a person doesn't have an appetite, they're likely not going to eat sufficiently. That's a very strategic angle. The harevna, make it pleasant, make it geshmak, so I'll keep on doing it. I think what he's saying though is really a deeper idea, is that the pleasure itself is not just a hechitimtza, it's not just a way of making sure that we do it as often as we should, but there's something intrinsically beautiful about the pleasure. The pleasure aspect of Avodas Hashem is almost part and parcel of the Avodas Hashem. Mm-hmm. So if I'm lacking the tanug, it's true, it might be harder for me to do, and therefore I might do it less than I should, but there's something more fundamental. there's an element of the avoda that's lacking. We have to explore what that is and how that
The
works.
whole
but-
concept of, I'm sorry.
At least
That's a good question, and we're going to get into the idea of what true tanug is, and how do we achieve it. And he speaks about the idea of nitzotzos, which we'll get into, kind of the divine sparks that are within everything. And he'll have a whole description of real pleasure in life is through connecting with the godliness in every person around us and within ourselves. And then there's also something called the klipos. And these are terms we've heard about probably in Kabbalistic or Hasidic literature. But the way he defines klipos is there's so much within the external or superficial world that, at least at face value, is more attractive and does taste better than ruchnius. So you're asking why is that true, which is a good question. Mrs. Dresner is suggesting that it could be that's part of the whole system of Bechira, which he'll definitely get into as well. And then the real question is, why ever HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world where, at least naturally, it feels like I'm getting more pleasure from superficiality and Gashmias, how do I shift that focus and get to a point where I'm tasting Tamu Ru'u, I'm actually tasting the Ruchnias, and I'm enjoying that and wanting more of that. So this is definitely the direction he's going. I'll leave you with a letter. Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Charlap was one of the main Talmidim of Rav Kook. And he actually took over the yeshiva after Rav Kook passed away. He was Rosh Yeshiva Merkas Harav. And there's a letter that Rav Yaakov Moshe Charlap wrote to Rav Kook when he was a young man, and he was asking for advice in his derech of avoda. And presently, he writes, I do tenesim, and I try to separate myself from the physical world as much as possible, to be as dovak beruchnius, as connected with spirituality as I can. But I want to know, right, how would you advise me? So Rav Kook writes back. It's a short letter, but it's very, very strongly worded. He was basically saying, in somewhat of a nice way, but also very straightforward, stop it. Stop the obsession with precious and tightness. Your job is to create a life where you could live with menuchas hanefesh, and you could serve Hashem from that vantage point. He says everything else will come naturally, but the greatest accomplishment is to do your hishtadlus in creating a life where I feel I have what I need, I have a sense of tranquility, I'm serene, and then from that place, you'll be able to serve Hashem on the highest levels. That's what Rav Kook writes to Rav Yaakov Moshe Charlap. Now, I was always bothered by that response because we do have a chazal that says, in Avos the Reb Nosson, if you do Avodas Hashem mitoch tsar, right, when it's really difficult or it's uncomfortable, the reward you get for that is hundreds of times more than doing Avodas Hashem mitoch menucha, when everything is just easy and peaceful. So Rav Kook's answer to Rav Charlap, doesn't that seem to fly in the face of that concept in Hashkafa?
you don't try to set yourself up to be able to retire.
So I think that's the answer. The answer is,
Yeah.
you don't have to add on.
Right.
Don't worry. Living long enough, you'll have many moments of real difficulty and suffering. And when you're pushing yourself through those moments, the schar is incredible. But as you're trying to structure your day and your life, don't set it up in a way where you're causing yourself more pain. Our goal is we want an environment internally and externally of Avodas Hashem where it's mitoch menuchas hanefesh, to be able to enjoy it as much as possible. Okay, we'll have to stop here for now, and we'll continue next time. Hashem.
Thank you.
Great start. Thank you. Tizkul the mitzvahs for coming out.